Now we'll need to do differential correction with our data once we've downloaded them. But before we start, I want to show you something about the differential correction you just completed. You had a file here that you differentially corrected, and differentially corrected against a base station, in this case this Coors Oakdale base station. Now if we look at the properties of this base station, we can see that the reference position was this ITRF 00, International Terrestrial Reference Frame 00. That is related to the WGS84, so our latitude and longitudes for our output are corrected in terms of this ITRF, and we need to make sure we convert them to our target coordinate system in our export here. So we have this Utilities Export in Pathfinder Office that we can select, and it has our list of files that we just corrected. It's going to output them to our project folder in the export subdirectory. Now I want to make sure a couple of things. One, I want to select an Esri shapefile output. There isn't a geodatabase output option, so I'll output a shapefile and then I can pull that into my geodatabase later on. I also want to make sure I get these properties correct. And the two most important properties are the position filter and the coordinate system. You can look at the rest of these tabs, but for the most part the defaults are what you want. You want to be careful that you select either uncorrected or corrected depending upon whether you're exporting corrected or uncorrected files. Here we corrected this file, so we'll not want to export any uncorrected positions because those are ones that couldn't correct for some reason or other. If I were to have an uncorrected file I wanted to export for some reason, I would check this and uncheck the rest. So I want to make sure I get the position filter correctly set here with uncorrected checked, and then uncorrected unchecked, so that I'm not putting out any uncorrected features. And then I want to make sure I get the correct coordinate system. Sometimes it's defaulting to the current display coordinate system, and I wouldn't want that. I'm going to use an export coordinate system, and I want to make sure I get this correct. If it's not correct, I want to change it here and select the correct coordinate system. So I'm in the UTM N8083 15 north, and I want to make sure the ND83 is this CONUS Coors 96. That's our target system. It doesn't really matter height of ellipsoid because we're not really using the GPS to measure heights. So I want to make sure I get this on that Coors 96. Then it'll put the correct datum in. Okay, so there's my export system. I also want to make sure I get this projection file. I can add it here, or I can add it later in ArcGIS. Here I browse to it, and I want to make sure that I find it on my computer here. It's in this here on my C drive under Program Files, under ArcGIS, under Desktop 10, under Coordinate Systems, under Projected Coordinate Systems. They don't make it easy, do they? Under UTM, under North America, finally, light at the end of the tunnel. The Coors 96 Zone 15 North for the UTM. Now I'll open that up. It'll happily write it in. Now I could export it without specifying this PRJ file because I've specified the coordinate system up here, and Trimble will apply the datum transformation, but it won't put the PRJ file in unless I specify it. And so later on Arc will give me this annoying message about, oh, I don't know what the coordinate system is. I may have problems displaying it because the datum isn't defined. I could do that in Arc, but I'll just do it here and everything's set. I make sure they both match. So say OK, and off we go. And then I'll do OK on the projection. Now it says files may be overwritten. Why? Well, it only writes to one place in this export file system. It always names them point GE or poly GE or line GE. I can't specify a different name. So each time I export, I want to move my data out of this export subfolder and name them something else someplace else. And that way I can overwrite the files. I got to be really careful. This is something that they should change but haven't. So now that I've exported my data, I can pull them into Arc for processing.